Good morning, all. So, as per the Mitesh sir's discussion with me, your unit number one is already completed. That is Introduction to Database Management System. So, can anyone tell me what do you mean by Database Management System? What do you mean by DBMS? Anyone? What do you mean by DBMS? Anyone from the list of 34 students? Yes? Any? Okay. Very good. Okay, a software that is used to store and manage the data, right? So we have two different types of architectures in DBMS. First one is three-level architecture, and the second one is the DBMS architecture. So can you tell me what is the three-level architecture? The levels of three-level architecture? Yeah, what are the three levels of architecture? Anyone? It is just the revision so that I can just relate and connect this all things with this next unit. Yeah, very good. So where actually we store the data? In which level we store the data? Okay, and which level deals with the user? Very good. So what is the role of conceptual level? What is the main role of? Yes. Yes, so we are actually mainly dealing with the structure, with the schema of the database. Very good. So just last question, what are the different types of users? What are the different types of users? What are the different types of users? Okay, so can you name properly all four types of users, Rushi? Okay. So what do you mean by application programmer? Then we have application programmers, specialized users, naive users, and database administrators. These are the four main types of users. So what is the main role of database administrator then? Anyone? What is the main role of database administrator? Yes, Mukund? Okay. Yes. Then what is the main role of database administrator? To manage the data. Okay, Utsav. Still, can anyone give me what are the main two roles of DBA? Why DBA is required? So now I'm connecting this part with the next unit. Yeah. Yes, Mishal? Okay. Okay. Other than this, anyone? The role may include capacity planning, installation, configuration, and database design. Okay, Mahfuz. So we can assume that the database administrator is mainly concerned with the structure and overall storage of your database. And also, yes, and also it manages that how the data will be accessed and who will be having an authority to access those database, right? So this is what the role of database administrator is, right? So now assume that you have been given one task that you need to prepare one database for a particular application or a system, right? And you are not allowed to discuss with anyone else for creating the database for that particular system. Then do you think database would be efficient enough which you create? Only you are the person who has been given a task to create one database for a particular system or application. But you are not allowed to discuss what it should consist or anything, and you are just being given the task to create it. You are not allowed to discuss anything with anyone regarding that application or system. Then do you think that you can prepare a database in an efficient way without knowing? Yes. Right, okay. Anyone else? Okay, okay, fine. So whenever you are being asked to create a database or you have been given one system that you need to create a database for a particular system, right? Then at that particular moment, the first thing that you should be allowed to is you should be able to discuss with either the person who requires a system or with a group of people who are actually going to develop that particular application. Now the reason why I am saying this, that you need to discuss the system is you need to know what actually the system requires. What are the features of the system? What are the components that system will require? Or what are the some of the functionalities that particular system will require? So you need to know that what are the basic requirements of a system, and that is the only reason why you need to discuss with either the system owner or your client or a group of people, that is application programmers. Until and unless you discuss and you know the exact requirement for a particular system, you cannot go for database development, right? And that is the only reason why a basic requirement or pre-requirements discussion is required before we create a database. And based on this, our next unit is database model. So I'm just presenting my screen and let's discuss that part. Right, so the next unit in the list is database models. We have skipped unit number 2 right now, and we will first complete unit number 3 and then we'll go for unit number 2 because there is some interconnection between these two units. That is why. So, database models, and in this particular chapter, we are mainly going to deal with this particular topic. This is the most important topic for this unit, that is ER diagrams. Now, whenever we talk about database models or data models, we are actually talking about visualizing or pictorial or providing a picture format of your database. That means you are going to give some pictures or some graphs or some visual representation to your database. Like you can say that one table will be there, you will be connecting that table with the other table. So you are just going to create one picture or a visual representation of your database. So modeling mainly deals with visual presentation of your database. And one of the most important and mostly used pictorial format of database is ER diagrams. This diagram mainly tells us everything about the database. It tells us everything about the database. So now as we are talking about why do we need to discuss or we need to know about the requirement of the database. So this is what the answer is. Database design. So whenever you are dealing with the designing or creating of the database, it involves understanding operational and business needs of organization. You can call it organization, you can call it a system, you can call it a client, you can call it anything. That means a particular component that requires a system to be used, that requires some end user system to be used by the group of people. So we need to know what will be the operational and business needs of that particular system. And based on that, you need to model the specified requirements. So once you understand all the needs of a system, you can be able to deal with requirement gathering. That means you can be know or you will be able to know what will be the basic requirements of that system, and then based on that you will be able to create your database. You will be able to create your database. So database design, that is the main part for any particular application or a system. So it states that whenever you are trying to create a database design, first try to know what will be the basic requirements of that database or that system. And based on that requirements, based on the functionalities of that particular system, you try to create a database design. So this is what database design process includes. And that is the only reason why you require the understanding and noting down all the needs of a particular system. And the overall database design process has to follow a series of steps. So whenever you are creating a database, right, you need to follow some particular steps, and that steps are known as design methodology. The steps are known as design methodology. So whatever process you go through for creating a database design, that complete process is known as design methodology. So what all things that including the process? We can say that you need to first understand the requirement or needs of a system. Based on that needs, you need to just structure out all the requirements and all the functionalities, and based on functionalities you will find out what all tables and what all relationships it will require for a complete database design. So there are mainly three steps you need to follow. Understand the requirement. Based on the requirement, draw the rough structure of your needs or the tables, and based on that you need to just provide the relationships between the tables so that you will be able to connect one table with the other table. And this complete process is known as design methodology. Am I clear with this part, everyone? Am I clear with this? What is the, or any doubts, anyone? Okay, so next, what is written here? Why do we require these particular steps? The goal of designing a database, that means whatever this part we have discussed in the first part, that means why do we require the need of discussing with the organization to know its requirement? The need is if we want to prepare or create efficient, high quality and minimum cost database, then we require the discussion or we require the understanding of operational and business needs of an organization. So this is the main role that, or this is the main reason we are actually dealing with the understanding and noting down the requirements of a system to create efficient, high quality and minimum cost database. Now what do you mean by efficient and high quality? Anyone? What do you mean by minimum efficient and high quality database? Any wild guesses? Anyone? Yeah, anyone? Okay, Ayush, very good. Efficient and high quality. Yes. Any other students? Anyone else? Efficient, okay, we can say that it will work in every condition and it will be able to manage all types of data in any condition. Okay, we can say that. What about high quality database? What do you mean by high quality database? Any wild guesses, anyone? Optimization, okay. Jay, good. High quality in short means you are going to create an optimal database. Now, what do you mean by optimal? Optimal means the database that you have created is exactly as per the requirement of the system. That means you have included each and every smallest component of the system that would be required to be stored in a database. So you have created a very good and a very good quality database. That means you have covered each and every component of the system that is to be required to be stored in a database. So this is what efficient and high quality mean. Now here there is one word called minimum cost of database. So what do you mean by minimum cost of database? Anyone else? Anyone? What do you mean by minimum cost of database? See, I am the person who likes interacting. I cannot be only a speaker. I want some interactions from you also. You can give any answer, whatever you think about a particular word. Don't worry regarding that thing. At least you will be able to speak and I will become to know. Okay, minimum expense. So what in terms of minimum expense? We can say that, let us say we have created a database for a system and we assume that a particular database is accurate and is of high quality, but after analysis by the system owner we came to know that we have not included some parts of the components that were required to be stored in the database. So again we need to restructure our database, we need to create some new tables, we need to establish some new relationships, right? So again you need to create one database again, right? We need to create a redevelop or restructure the database, right? So we are talking about here minimum cost. So minimum cost here means minimum time actually. Cost represents time actually here, right? So we don't want to waste too much time in developing the database only. Whenever we are creating a database, it should be developed in a very small amount of time and that particular database should be efficient as well as the high quality. So this is why we require the exact understanding of the system or an application. Clear with this, guys? The three particular words. Why do we require this database design process? Understanding, structuring, and then creating the database design. Just to make sure that our database, whatever we have created, is of high quality, is efficient to manage all types of data, and has been created using minimum amount of time. Am I clear with these three parts? Any doubts? Any repetition required? Fine. So, yes, yes. Yeah, high quality means we can say that, let us say you created one database, right? Now, we need to analyze that whether our database is accurate or not. So, for accuracy, we can say that we need to check whether it is able to store each and every component of a system that is required to be stored in the database. So, if it matches that particular standard that yes, it is able to store each and every small things for a particular system so that a system can work in a very smoother way, then we can say that yes, the database has matched that standard and it is of high quality. And because it is of high quality, it is efficient enough to manage all types of data of a system. This is what high quality mean actually. Right. Any more doubts, anyone? Right. So in a large organization, all these things, that is understanding the requirements, structuring the data, and then creating the database design. And to make sure that the database is of high quality and efficient enough, the task is of database administrator. So he is the responsible person who is actually going to develop the database design for your application. But we are talking about in large organizations. We are not talking about the small scale organizations. If you as an individual, you want to create a project or an application, then you won't be acting as a database administrator because you yourself will be acting as an application programmer, specialized user, also the database administrator and also the naive users because you need to test this application, so you will be naive user again. So whenever we are talking about a large organization or large IT industry where they have one section for application programmers, one section is mainly dealing with the network, other section is mainly dealing with the database operations. So in that particular part, there will be one database administrator who will be actually dealing with all these processes. That means understanding the requirement, structuring of data, and actually creating the database design. Clear with this? Right, so DBA is the one of the person who is mainly responsible for database management or database operations. Clear with this, everyone? Right. So whenever we are talking about database design, right, we need to consider one important component. That component is known as integrity constraint. Integrity constraint. So anyone who can tell me what do you mean by integrity constraint without looking to the PPT? That is covered in chapter number 1. What do you mean by integrity constraint? It has been covered in chapter number 1 in disadvantages of file processing system. Yeah, anyone? Integrity constraint. Okay, set of rules. Fine. So why do we require a set of rules then? Not actually. We can say that, but not exactly, Mishan. Anyone? Why do we require a set of rules in a particular database? Yes, I'm waiting for your answer. Okay, very good. And I think someone has given the answer. This used to maintain the quality of information. Yes, Suryabali, exactly. That is what I was expecting the answer. So, set of rules in a database is mainly required to maintain the quality of data, right? Let us say for an example, you have a database of a bank and a bank has a rule that in your account minimum 500 rupees should be there, right? So that is what this set of rules has been implied on your account. Now, if your balance is getting lesser than the 500, then you will get a notification, right, that your balance cannot be less than 500 or please credit some amount to your bank as your balance is less than 500. So this is what a set of rules or some types of conditions that has been implied on a particular database so that overall database consistency is maintained properly and your data is managed in an efficient way. So that is the only reason why you require a set of rules, right? And that is why integrity constraint has been imposed on your database. So now, what do you mean by integrity constraint? Are the set of rules imposed on a database to maintain the quality of data, so we actually want that whatever data we are storing in our database, that should be of a good quality and all, we can say high quality, and it should be efficient and consistent enough so that whenever it is retrieved, it is we are getting an actual data. So integrity constraint ensures that any manipulation on data does not affect its integrity, right? If you, let us say, for an example here, I am saying that minimum balance of an account should be 500, right? So now either you credit some amount, you withdraw some amount, you do any type of transactions on your account, ultimately these rules will maintain the conditions that you implied on the account. That means the rules that you implied on your database, that minimum 500 should be the balance. So each and every time, whatever type of transactions you do, it will check whether the balance is more than 500 or not. If it is getting somehow less than 500 by any of the transaction, right, then it will give you a notification or it will not allow you to perform that particular transaction. So that is why it has been said here that it ensures that any manipulation on data does not affect your data integrity. So either you credit or withdraw the amount, ultimately your data, that means minimum 500 rupees, will be maintained by the rules that has been implied on your database. Clear with this? What do you mean by integrity constraint now? It ensures your data quality, ultimately efficient data quality. Clear with this, guys? Okay, so ultimately it secures the data management. As I said, it manages your data efficiently. And for this, you have 5 types of constraints. First one is check constraint, second is not null, unique key, primary key, and foreign key. So now we are going to see all these with a small example in my Excel. So I am not going to discuss in the theory, I will directly take an example here. So I hope my Excel file is visible to everyone. Okay, so now let me just zoom it somewhat so you can see it properly. Right. So let us say I'm having account ID, name. Let us say I'm having address, mobile, and we have balance. Right. So assume that this is the schema of the bank database. Assume that this is bank database. Assume it. Don't say that it is wrong, but just assume that this is small bank database, right? Okay. So account ID, that is account number, maybe let us say account number. Then we have a name of the account holder, the address, the mobile number, and the balance. Now here I am putting one constraint. Constraint is balance should be greater than 500. What is the constraint or integrity constraint I have put? Balance should be greater than 500. So here I am saying that for each and every type of transaction on this particular account, let us say one, some name, some address, some mobile number, and now here some balance, let us say 499. So this is what the integrity constraint or condition that has been implied on a particular database or a column. What is the constraint? The constraint is balance should be greater than 500. So every time you enter or you transact some amount on your account, it will always check whether the balance is greater than 500 or not. So here actually we have imposed check constraint. What we have done? We have imposed check constraint. So check constraint is mainly used to put a particular type of condition on a particular column or a group of columns. So we can say these are the columns. So either you can put a check constraint on a single column or you can put check constraint on a group of columns. Now what is the condition that we have put using check constraint? The condition is balance should be greater than 500. So every time you transact, it will check the balance should be greater than 500. So if you enter 499, it won't be allowed to insert that record in your database. It will give that this is invalid. It violates the constraint already imposed on this particular column. So this is what check constraint is. Check constraint is mainly used to impose or to apply some conditional data or conditions on a single column or on a group of columns. Let us say I have put check here, and here I am saying that mobile number should start with 9. Mobile number should start with 9. So whenever you are trying to enter the data here, right? So it will check whether the number is starting with 9 or not. So if you have not entered the number which starts from 9, it will again give you the error that this should start with only 9 or there is some problem with your data. So check mainly allows you to put some conditions on your database or on your single column or a group of columns. Clear with this, guys? What do you mean by check constraint? What do you mean? Okay. So check constraint basically allows you to put a conditions on a group of columns. Right? Everyone? So let's see the theory of check constraint now. So check constraint. This constraint is defined on a column. As I said, we are defining it on a single column or a group of columns. Right? So already it is written here. See, the constraint can be applied for a single column or on a group of columns. Now, what is the use of check constraint? It limits the data values of a variables to a specific set of values based on some condition. So it allows us to limit the values. So it allows us to limit the values of the columns based on some conditions that we can apply on it. So we have applied one condition that balance should be greater than 500. So we can say that this is the value, and on this value we have put up this particular condition. Right? Again, I can say that name should be in capital letters. Name should be capital. So again I have put one check condition here that name should be always in a capital. So this is what check constraint mean. Clear with this, everyone? Any doubts in check constraint? Fine. So let's continue with the next constraint. The next constraint is not null constraint. So what does this mean? Not null means this constraint ensures that wherever you applied this not null constraint, that particular column will not have any empty values. That column value cannot be null or empty. Let us take the example here in the Excel. Assume that I am saying that account number should be not null. So what does this mean? Account number should be not null. I am just removing this particular column, columns condition, right? So account number should not be null. So in case it means that if you are entering any values to this particular column, specifically this column, then this column value cannot be empty. this column value cannot be empty. So what does this mean? Let us say I am trying to insert some more records. Let us say here, right? And you can see that here this column value has not been defined. But what is the condition that has been put up on this particular column? That means it should not be null. So here this value cannot be empty. I should give some value to this particular column or this particular row. Anything. This row already has these values, but we have implied not null constraint or not null condition on this particular column. So it means that this column cannot have anywhere empty values. This column cannot have anywhere empty values. So here you cannot keep it empty. You need to give some data. Let us say I have given 3 here. So now this not null condition or not null constraint is not violated. Is not violated. But if it is empty, then we can say that not null constraint is violated and you won't be allowed to enter these records until and unless you provide some values to this particular column. So this is what not null means. You need to provide some value if you applied not null constraint on a particular column. Clear? So you need to give some value to here to this. So this is what not null means. Not null means column value cannot be empty. Wherever you implied not null, that column cannot have empty values. Let us say again here in address I am giving not null. Let's say n.n. N.n means not null. Just assume it. N.n means not null. And I am trying to enter some more records. Let us say I am keeping this empty. I am giving the data. So here I have put not null constraint. So this record won't be allowed to insert it in your database until and unless you provide some data here, because the constraint is not null. That means this column value cannot be empty. Clear with this, everyone? Any doubts in not null? Right, so this data should be filled up. So let me say here it is Rajkot, here it is say Baroda, and let us say here it is Ahmedabad. Right, so now our data is okay. So this is what all about your check constraint and not null constraint. Right, so now let's see the third constraint. The third constraint is unique key constraint. So what does unique key means? Ensures that data in each row for a single or a group of columns is unique or distinct. What it ensures? It ensures that the data in each row for a single or a group of columns is unique or distinct or different. And a column value can have null values but cannot be duplicated. So what does it do? It ensures that the data in each of the row is unique. So what does this mean? Let us take the example here. Here now I am removing the not null. I am removing the not null here again. But instead of not null, I am saying that account number should be unique key. Account number should be unique key. So what does this mean? Anyone? What does this? Okay, somewhat near to it. Now, what does this unique key means? Where I have implied this unique key? On which column I have implied this unique key? On which column I have applied? Account number, right? So on this particular column, I have applied or implied a unique key. So what does this mean? It means that this column cannot have duplicated values. What does this mean? If I applied a unique key on a particular column, then it means that this particular column cannot have a duplicated value. Right? Let us say, assume that I am inserting one more record. Let us say 1D Surat, some number and some data, right? And now if you can see that here I have implied a unique key. So unique key states that this column cannot have any duplicated values. So do we have any duplicated values? Yes, we have. 1 and 1 are duplicated, right? So we can say that one person or two different persons cannot have same account number, right? So here unique key constraint has been violated. It means that there is one duplication of data. So here one cannot be allowed to be entered because one is already available in this column. One is already available in this column. So we need to change this particular account number. So let us say I am changing it to empty. I am keeping it empty. I have kept here D, Surat, this number and this balance, and I have not given anything to this particular column. So still this is allowed because it is not getting duplicated with anyone. I have not entered any value, but I have kept it empty. So here you can see in PPT that a column can have null values, so it can be empty but cannot be duplicated. So I can keep this as empty, but you cannot duplicate with any of the already available data. So each and every value in this particular column should be unique or different. Clear with this? What do you mean by unique key? So let us assume that again I am entering some data E. Then let us say I am writing Jamnagar, some mobile number and some data, right? And let us say again I am keeping this empty. So now do you think we have duplicated data? Yes or no? You can see that these column values. Do you say or do you find any duplicated data? Do you see any duplicated data here? No, yeah, in the first column, the highlighted column. Okay, there is no duplicated data. Anyone else? Anyone else? Can't you see duplicated null values here? Both these values are empty. See this. Can you see this, everyone? Here 1, 2, 3 is given. Here there is no value because it is allowing null values. This unique key is allowing null values. We have kept it null here and also we have kept it null here. But these two nulls are duplicated. Actually, it is not duplicated, but we can say that it is duplicated. That means if you want to identify this particular row, you cannot identify it very easily. Or even if you want to identify this particular row, you cannot identify this particular row quite easily. Right? So these two are duplicated. Or you can have multiple or more than one null values in a particular column. Let us say I'm entering one more data. Again, you have three null values because of unique key. Unique key is allowing the null values. So you have three null values and it is quite difficult to access each of the three records because of these null values. So this is the main drawback of unique key actually. Because unique key is allowing null values but not the duplicated values, this particular records cannot be accessed quite easily. These records you cannot access quite easily, and that is the only reason why we are not using unique key nowadays. We are not using unique key nowadays. Only the reason is it is allowing more than one null values, and because of this it is quite difficult to access the records of the table, right? So instead of this unique key, what we are using nowadays is primary key. What we are using is we are using primary key. So primary key is similar to your unique key. It ensures that a column or a group of columns have the different or unique values or unique records. But the primary key cannot have null values as well as it cannot be duplicated. So drawback of unique key has been overcome in primary key. So that is the reason why we are using primary key nowadays. What was the drawback in unique key? The drawback was null values were allowed in unique key, and because of this null values data access was quite difficult, but that drawback has been overcome or resolved in this primary key. It means that primary key cannot have null values as well as duplicated values. So primary key will never allow null values or duplicated values. So here instead of unique key, let us say I am writing here primary key, right? So it means that these rows or these particular columns cannot have empty values. You should give some values to this particular columns. So I have to give some values to it. So I have given these values. So now this is okay. Now again if I try to write down here 3, and let us say I am giving some more name, and let us say some data, right? Again, this will violate the rule of primary key, because primary key says that the value of this particular column, wherever you have applied a primary key, right, it should be not null. That means the data should be there in that particular column, as well as it should not repeat or it should not be duplicated. But here 3 is duplicating with this particular row, you can see. So this won't be allowed to enter in our database. So what you need to do, you need to give some other value that is not duplicating, and you cannot keep it empty, right? So I am giving some new values like 7. So this is what the concept of unique key and primary key is. Unique key is allowing the null values but not the duplicated values. But because it is allowing more than one null values, we cannot access the data very quickly, so that we have stopped using the unique key and we have overcome the drawback of unique key with a primary key, in which we are not allowing any null values as well as we are not allowing any duplicated values. So ultimately we can say that primary key determines all these columns. Wherever you implied a primary key, that column determines or identifies the rest of the columns of the table. The rest of the columns of the table. So I can say that if I am having the account number 6, which is a primary key, I can find out all the details of the account. If I have the account number, I can find out all the details of the account. So this is what the primary key means. It identifies a group of columns of the particular table. Clear with this, guys? What is unique key? What is primary key? Or any doubts or repetition required? Fine. So the next constraint and the last constraint is foreign key. So what do you mean by foreign key? It is also known as referential integrity constraint. Now what do you mean by this? It means that let us say I am having one more data here. Let us say roll number, which is primary key. You are having name, you are having address, you are having the mobile, and you are having the semester of the student. So let us say 3, 5, 4, 6, 3, 2 and 3. So this is what the data you have, and I'm not having any checks right now. And you have a student table. This is what a student table is. Right? So this is what you have. So roll number 1, name is A, Rajkot, mobile and semester. And one more table you have like roll number, marks 1, marks 2, marks 3 and percentage, let us say. And you are having a result table here. Now, what you want to do is you want to display the result of the student. You want to display the result of the student, and while displaying the result, you want to display the marks, the percentage, and also the name and semester of the student. What you want to do? You want to display the marks, percentage, and name and semester of the student. So now, whenever you are having two different tables, you will be storing the result in other table and you will be storing the details of the student in one table. So here let us say I am having 1, 45, 55, 85, and let us say assume that the percentage is 70. I am having roll number 3, 55, 55, 55 and percentage is 55. Now I want to display the result of this. So what I want to display? I want to display this result, the marks of 3 subjects and the percentage along with the name, semester and roll number of the student. So now if I want to relate these two tables, I can use foreign key. So here I will provide one foreign key. I will provide a foreign key. Now what is the use of foreign key? Foreign key allows a user to relate one table with the other table. So here what are the common columns? You can see roll number are the common columns, and because this roll number in the student table is a primary key, we can relate this particular column with this roll number, that is foreign key. So what does this mean? Each and every values of this column, that is foreign key column, refers to the values of this particular column, that is primary key. It is referring. Referring means if you are trying to enter any records of this, let us assume that you are trying to enter the record of roll number 8 here. So do you find roll number 8 in this student table? Yes or no? Do you find roll number 8 in this table? Roll student table? No. So until and unless you have roll number 8 in this particular table, you cannot have entry of this particular roll number here. So you cannot enter the data of this. So foreign key means it refers to the data of the primary key column. So it is referring this data. You can enter the data of any of these roll numbers, but you cannot enter any of the data other than this in this particular column. You can have any data here, but you cannot have any data other than this in this particular column. So this is what foreign key means. It refers to the data of the some other table which is having a primary key. It refers to the data of some other table which is having some primary key. So you can see this example here. Here student S roll is a primary key, and here this result S roll is a foreign key which refers to this S roll of this student table. So until and unless you have the particular primary key in a table, the table cannot be referred by other table. So if you want to use foreign key, then you should have one primary key table. That means a table with one primary key column. So this is what foreign key means, right? So I think it is enough for the day, right? So let's end this lecture. I will ask Mitesh sir to just repeat foreign key again tomorrow or whenever you have the lecture, right? So let's end this lecture, students. I hope you understood whatever I have tried to teach you. Okay, so let's end this lecture here. Thank you guys.